Some mistakes never leave you. Not because they were the biggest, not because they changed everything, but because you understand them now. That's the strange thing about regret. It rarely hurts the most when it happens. It hurts later. Sometimes years later, when you finally have the information you didn't have back then. You look back at an old conversation, an old decision, an old version of yourself, and suddenly the answer seems obvious. You should have said this. You should have left sooner. You should have noticed the signs. You should have known better. But that's the trap. You only know better now. The version of you that made the decision didn't have the knowledge you have today. They were working with incomplete information. Limited experience. Limited understanding. But regret never seems interested in that detail. Regret judges your past self using evidence collected in the future. And somehow, it expects a different outcome. That's why some memories survive. Most moments disappear. Most conversations fade. Most ordinary days become impossible to remember. But regret preserves certain moments. Not because they were important. Because your mind keeps returning to them. Looking for an alternative ending. You replay the scene. You change the words. You imagine different choices. Different reactions. Different outcomes. And for a moment, it feels comforting. Because in your imagination, the problem finally gets solved. But reality never changes. Only the simulation does. And eventually, you realize something uncomfortable. The version of you that got everything right doesn't exist. They never existed. They're a character your mind created. A person built entirely from hindsight. Of course they make perfect decisions. They already know what happens next. You don't regret being imperfect. You regret being human. Human enough to make decisions without knowing the ending. Human enough to misunderstand things. To miss things. To learn things too late. And maybe that's why regret stays. Not because you're still trying to understand the mistake. Because you already understand it. The painful part is that understanding arrived after the moment was gone. Maybe that's the real reason regret survives. Not because the past won't let go of you. Because part of you still wishes knowledge could travel backwards. But it can't. And maybe growing older is learning to forgive the version of yourself who didn't know what you know now.